Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Mardefrutos. I am a policy officer for the Digital Transformation Cluster at EPHA, the European Public Health Alliance, and I will be moderating this session today. As some of you already know, the European institutions are currently discussing the so-called Artificial Intelligence Act, the regulation that aims to ensure that AI systems in the European market are safe and respectful of fundamental rights. However, the specific challenges that the use of AI in healthcare settings entail have not been sufficiently addressed, at least not to date. So in this context, we all have questions regarding the potential benefits, best practice, and also the precautionary measures that should be considering when designing and deploying AI-based tools that are meant to be used in healthcare. So to shed light on all these matters, we have invited 4 medical doctors who are involved in AI-based innovation across different European countries, and they are here today to answer your questions. Questions that you have been able to submit through the past few weeks via the survey that was available in our website prior to the webinar. So in order to keep the flow of the conversation, I have chosen those questions that came up more frequently and set them in an order that makes sense, I think, to follow the conversation. And for that reason, we will not be getting more questions from the audience today. The chat function will be disabled, but we encourage you to engage with us in social media. And just another more housekeeping message, please remember that this event is being recorded. So now let's get started and let me introduce you to our speakers. First of all, we have Belén Tristan here from Spain. She is a medical specialist in anatomic pathology, and she's currently responsible for the implementation of digital pathology in the network of 14 hospitals of the Health Service of Castilla y León. Belén, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? You were muted, Belén. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Good morning to all of you. My name is Belén, and I'm here alone with my colleague, Johanna Palacios, who will introduce herself in a moment. I'm a pathologist in the Hospital of Avila in Spain, and I work as general pathologist with a special interest in the area of dermatopathology and digital pathology, and I teach cytology at the university.
Thank you very much, Belén. We also have Johanna Palacios here. Johanna works as a pathologist at the University Hospital of Burgos in Spain as well, where she's also responsible for the autopsy department. She is the co-director of the Digital Pathology Task Group of Castilla y León, and together with Belén, she is responsible for the implementation of digital pathology. Johanna, what would you like us to know about yourself and your career path?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jason, for the invitation. Well, as you said, my name is Johanna Palacios. For starters, I'm a general surgeon who changed path over a decade ago and fell in love with pathology. And same as Belén, I work as a general pathologist at the University Hospital in Burgos, which is a different city from where Belén works in Spain as well, with a special interest in soft tissue and bone sarcomas, hematopathology, and digital pathology. And more recently, I became the responsible for the autopsy department, as you mentioned. And where Belén and I, we are both, along with four other pathologists from our region. We are the co-directors of the Digital Pathology Task Group of Castilla y León. And we are, the 6 of us, we are conducting currently a digital pathology implementation in a multi-hospital network of our 14 hospitals.
Thank you very much, Johanna. Now moving on to Stefan Buttigieg, medical specialist in public health medicine and currently working for the Ministry of Health in Malta, where he is the manager of the National Contact Point on e-health. Stefan, please let us get to know you a bit more.
So basically, I'm obsessed about artificial intelligence, especially recently. And I think there's a good reason behind it. It's because the field is expanding so quickly at a rate, I think, that we've never really presented, that it is time now to be on top of the topic and really not just superficially understand, but deeply understand. And I'm happy to say that I'm also working within the ministry to explore this topic further. So there's endless opportunities ahead of us, and I'm really also happy to work with EPHA, especially on this topic. Over, thanks.
Thank you very much, Stefan. That was very interesting. Now, last but not least, we have Jakub Cheko, who is a pediatric physician with extensive experience in healthcare innovation, supporting medical startups, public-private partnerships, and also the implementation of new technologies. Jakub, what can you tell us about you and your career path?
Hi guys. Thanks for the invitation. Although Poland is maybe not considered the forefront of the innovation, I'm still here, which I'm grateful for. I'm a pediatrician myself, as you mentioned. I used to work in medtech industry. I was the medical director for Roche Diabetes Care, where I developed some artificial intelligence-driven algorithms and applications with my colleagues. I used to work with startups. I did a value-based healthcare and university in Paris course and artificial intelligence in Poland and MBA. So I'm kind of trying to connect business, technical, and medical world all in one. Also supporting Ministry of Health on digitalization of the ecosystem, bringing the digital therapeutics to Poland and trying to regulate artificial intelligence and European health data space and bring it home here. So maybe we will become some, kind of front runner in EU someday, hopefully.
Thank you, Jakub. And now moving on to the questions. My first question is for all of you. I would like to know, or our audience also wants to know, what is a very common misconception that you often encounter around the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare? Jakub, if you wish, maybe you could start. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that. I thought I was gonna go last one, to tell you the truth. I didn't hear you. Can we have a question again? Sorry for that. That's my mistake.
The question is, what is a common misconception that you often encounter around the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare?
Of course. So, when it comes to doctors, the basic thing that we are facing all the time is the misconception of AI replacing the doctor, which is, of course, something that we hear all the time. And basically on each conference that we have on artificial intelligence, everybody's saying the same thing. Guys, don't worry. AI is not going to replace you. AI is just going to replace those who are not using AI, basically. So that's a kind of a maybe misconception, but I kind of I agree with that. That looking at my colleagues who are already implementing artificial intelligence algorithms in their usually day work and work practice, they are much more efficient than those who don't use it. Basically, when it comes to the number of cases that they can see, the number of patients, the quality they can get, and the cost that they can reduce thanks to the algorithms and thanks to the support of that. So definitely, I would say this thing is kind of a no-brainer these days. When we all connect around artificial intelligence, we know that it's not going to replace the doctors, it's going to support the doctors. In the end, it's going to help us to make a better, more informed decision. And definitely some kind of a misconception that we get is around the quality of artificial intelligence. Maybe many people are afraid of the quality that AI gets these days, but many times the specificity of those algorithms are as high as the specificity of a doctor's and doctor's decision that they make. So basically, I think that for the doctors, this is the thing that speaks to them the most. When we present the results of AI, sometimes it's really good to compare those to the results of the doctors. And if, as though when we see that the AI can outperform doctors, on one side, we are getting afraid a little bit maybe, but on the other hand, we start to trust those algorithms to some extent, and we need to trust those tools and devices to actually use them in a daily practice. So maybe that, and sorry again, for being a little absent-minded at the beginning.
That was a very good answer. So AI is not here to replace the doctors, but to support doctors. Stefan, do you want to jump in next?
Yeah, definitely. I want to build on what Jakub already said, which is exactly this. But one thing that I would like to point out is that if once AI has a bigger role in replacing, let's say, the tedious tasks, the one that can easily be replaced and validated also by implemented through validated AI solutions, then the doctors will focus much more on low frequency, high stakes situations. And that is the game changer, that here, all of a sudden, rather than doctors being stretched thin, trying to figure out the tasks that really need minimal brain power, so to speak, and that they are tedious, and they add even sometimes to the frustration, like, registering a patient, doing a specific referral based on a treatment plan that has already been defined, doing all of these tasks, and filling up forms. Rather than that, they will be focused on the clinical management of low frequency, high stakes situations that many times are complex, require a lot of thinking and planning, require deep knowledge, not just superficial, deep knowledge, and they would even be complemented by AI assistants to help them come to the right answer to enable a positive patient outcome at the end of the day. So I think that's going to be the real game changer. So that will be a really, really big step forward.
Thank you very much. So AI is here to support, not replace doctors, and also to release somehow the brain resources of the doctors so that they can focus on what matters. And last, we can move to Johanna and Belén. What do you want to add to this discussion?
Well, okay, yes, adding on what Jacob just said and Stefan, machines do not make the decision all on its own. We as pathologists do. And it's our duty to make sure that every single diagnosis we make and every biopsy we sign off has been correctly studied. And algorithms in pathology can help us diagnose cases in an easier and more precise way. No, it can facilitate the evaluation of difficult cases and also help us do our work faster to help reduce our workloads and the waiting list for patients. So, in our opinions, we need to see AI as an ally, not an enemy.
I also want to add that we think another common misconception is that the AI is an abstract tool of the distant future and that it cannot be included on our daily lives. And the reality is that we are already using it in hospitals, especially in specialties such as ours. I'm going to set an example to make it easier to understand for us how it is for us pathologists. In our reports, for example, in breast diagnostic biopsies, there are many subjective and essential parameters that clinicians need to treat patients. And one of the main advantages of using digital pathology is obviously the potential of implementing computer-aided diagnosis tools assessed by AI. That may improve for us the evaluation of the tissue morphology, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And this subjectivity that we can have in the appreciation of the histological features of these breast pathology sometimes leads to less than desired inter-observer concordance rates, which is more evident in the borderline cases. And this misclassification of breast disease may result either under or over treatment with big consequences on patients' health. And also in these breast cancer biopsies, we do prognostic and some predictive markers that we evaluate through immunohistochemistry. So through immunohistochemistry that you might have heard hormone receptors like ER, PR, HER2, or Ki67. We give these results in a percentage that we assess kind of subjectively. All of these results help us classify each patient into a specific molecular subtype. And this gives the pathology, the oncology, the whole picture on how to treat. And there are targeted treatments for some of these markers, which means that each patient can have more probability of a better outcome, as Stefan just said. So if we use AI to evaluate these breast biopsies as an example, as well as for the predictive and prognostic markers, we can have a more objective assessment of these histologic features and improve both sensitivity and specificity of the pathologic diagnosis without increasing our workload. So I think we have to conclude with this, that AI is a necessary tool.
Thank you, Johanna. I'm very interested in what you just said, because this leads us to our next question, because you all have been talking about the potential benefits of AI, and you both were just saying how you already use AI in your daily practice. But our audience wants to know, what are the major barriers that you face when you use AI in your medical practice?
I think that we actually have discussed it previously with our colleagues. We can think of many barriers in our setting as pathologists, but for sake of time, we're only going to mention a few. And I think first and foremost, I would say is the lack of funding, either because AI is a very expensive tool, or maybe because as they're still in a developing phase, sometimes public health systems are rarely committed to offering them. And I think this issue goes along with another two, the lack of process for adoption of the AI and the long time needed for the adoption and the deployments of the AI. And another point, I think very important one, is the lack of information and competence. And this is a big challenge to artificial intelligence. Given the complexity that comes with AI technology, I think we all think it's vital to comprehend the strengths and the weaknesses, including the process of how it works. So I think that our institutions have to invest in AI education, not only for ourselves as pathologists and as the end users of the AI, but for the entire team, if we actually want to overcome challenges and ensure the continuous learning of AI.
And in addition, I would like to ask two other interesting questions. We don't know what happens if an algorithm fails. Where does the responsibility lie? On the hands of the developer, those who research, design, or develop AI systems, or on the hands of the deployers, public or private organizations that use AI systems within their business process, and on the hands of the end users. We have serious doubts about this, no? And I think that the last but not least barrier to the adoption of AI in many departments is the resistance to change. Many co-workers feel intimidated because they worried that automation may eventually take over their positions, and many other, on the contrary, feels they won't be able to trust the AI's assessment on a diagnosis, since unlike best practice guideline in medicine, the AI field is largely uncharted territory. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Johanna and Belen. So we are talking about the resistance to change, need for better regulation, and lack of funding, three key pillars that we will touch upon later on in some of the questions. But now we also want to know, what would you say are the barriers and also the best practices when explaining the outputs of AI-based systems to patients? What would you say is best to do?
As you know, we are pathologists, so we are not clinicians. We do not see patients on a daily basis, but we do have relatives, and they are some other doctor's patient. And as they now know some of the details of our digital and computational pathology project, they do ask a lot of questions and raise many concerns. So I always try to set tangible examples of medical tech that they are already used to, and somehow they feel close to home, like, for example, an echocardiogram, an MRI, or even the results of a blood sample test that goes through a machine. And no one ever questions those results. And I think everyone here today has at least done one of these examples once in their lives, and they're all used to it. I also use non-medical examples, like, for example, the voice recognitions in an app that every one of us use on a daily basis, like WhatsApp. What I think is the aim is to emphasize that all of us are already using AI on a daily basis, on our daily routine, and sometimes without even knowing it. And it has to change the perspective and not make AI stop fearing the AI, because we're already using it. So that's what I usually say.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with you. And actually, digital health literacy is also a big topic for me at EPHA. And the next webinar I'm organizing next year will be around this topic, because we need citizens in general, not just patients, to have a better understanding of what digital health tools can do to make better informed decisions and be able to advocate for their own health. But moving on to the next question, because we have a lot. My next question for you would be, is it possible for doctors to keep agency through the decision-making process when using AI-based tools? I know you have all already touched upon this question, but it is one of the questions that was coming up more frequently. So I would, like to get your thoughts on this.
Of course, it does. AI does not take away our autonomy. The last word will always be ours. System based on artificial intelligence can use patient data, digital medical history, genomic data, among others, to generate recommendations to the healthcare professionals in order to make better and faster decisions. We could not do this so quickly and automatically, but is this the job of the professional to review the data and have given patient use by the AI to validate the results? Another fact is, and this is very important, the pathology are indispensable in the AI development phase. Our input on the morphology of each sample is what helps the AI to learn and improve. So one key that must not forgotten is that AI does not take away our autonomy, and it needs our interventions to be a really useful tool.
Thank you very much. I see that Jacob wants to add something to this matter.
Yes,
Please
I want
go
to
ahead.
just, there are so many interesting topics that, I'm thinking I would like to get back, but maybe I won't because of the sake of the time. But nevertheless, when it comes to this question, I would also distinguish what kind of a tools are we talking about, because I kind of feel that we were talking about clinical decision support systems and how to trust them in some way. But AI tools are not only decision support, but they're also administrative tools that are supporting and helping us. For example, the latest example, which I'm using right now in my practice, I'm testing a tool, which is a kind of a simple tool, which is a voice to text basically, and is helping me to structure the notes that I'm taking, So basically, it's not like I have to have a really big understanding of that or a big trust in that, because in the end I see the outcome before I actually deliver this to patients. So I just need to check it if the AI did a good job and if the note is structured in a correct and right way, and there are many administrative tools which are helping right now us, especially that the world of medicine is many times an open Windows frame. So you put a text, like a free text, and there are tools which are helping us as well to put those texts faster and then to structure and to make a additional database out of the text. Because if we have something like a Windows that we click and we choose, then we have a structured database in the end that we can use afterwards to train another algorithms or to get back to some information that we need. But if we have a free text, unless we use an NLP, we won't be able to get back to that. So again, when it comes to clinical decision support systems, definitely there is a big emphasis on the education as well for both doctors on how to use it, what's the specificity, as we already talked, and sensitivity, and for the patients. But on the other hand, then there are many administrative AI tools that it's, in my opinion, kind of quite easily implemented. They could be easily implemented because we see the immediate outcomes. I'm using this tool as mentioned again, and I'm asking patients if that's fine for them, if I would use this tool. And finally, for the first time in many years, I'm actually able to focus 100% on them. I'm looking in their eyes and they feel uncomfortable because for many years, since they know, doctors never looked in their eyes because they always tried to write something on the dashboard, on the keyboard. And now this guy is looking at me, he wants to make a connection. He's empathetic, so this is something also like a kind of a breakthrough in mind that you again can get this time and you can devote this time to the patients, for example, to use it, to empathize and to really understand what's happening out there in the second person's mind.
Thank you very much for the clarification, Jakub. I think this is a topic that always raises concerns, whether AI is going to make the medical practice more or less human. And this is exactly what we wanted to make of this webinar, to have different medical doctors who apply different AI tools in their practice, give us their perspective. So thank you very much for that clarification. Now, Stefan, you always say that you work very hard to make sure that the digital transformation does not leave anyone behind. So the next question might be particularly suitable for you. People were saying that applying AI to healthcare can exacerbate existing inequities for marginalized groups. Is this a concern you share? And if so, how would you address it? And on the contrary, do you think that AI could also be a tool to reduce inequities? And again, if so, how?
Yeah, definitely. But first, we have to make sure that we really look at diverse data collection. That means that if, for example, we're trying to, set up different patient groups, for example, that needs to mean that ethnicity is well represented. That means that our data sets need to link as well with social determinants for health, so that we can really pin down to the problem and not just throw an intervention, especially a population health intervention, which is like, like a wide net, but more like focused, targeted interventions, especially to the people who need it the most. Which could be, for example, low income, coming from a specific ethnic group, having more diverse data collection. And that's actually has seen also in a document on the AI in the NHS, a framework for adoption. So that's like one point to start off with. The next two, and the second point that I would like to make sure is that we look at bias detection and correction. That means that we really have to have a deep understanding of our data sets. And that means, for example, integrating metadata, having descriptive metadata and structural metadata on our data sets to really understand what does it represent. That is the second step. And the last but not least, that in general, we have inclusive policy and ethical frameworks. That means that policy is important, a strategy is important, not we just go into it like head first, but with blinders covering our eyes. But we actually go for it. We have a policy, we have a vision, ideally iterative policy and vision, so that we really make sure that we don't miss anyone out. And that's because we had time to think it through. And just to let you know, like even for preparing for this webinar, I actually set up my own GPT. What did I do? In this particular case, I used the OpenAI solution, ChatGPT. I happen to be lucky enough to have a full subscription. I set up a GPT and I uploaded 8 top AI strategy and documents right now, strategy frameworks, and I use those. I actually asked the GPT to help me answer based on the knowledge graph to help me answer these questions. So it's thanks to this and also my past knowledge, I was able to hopefully give you a more comprehensive answer. So it's really amazing what you can do today with a couple of clicks. Actually, it took me about 15 minutes to do this. What took me more time is downloading all the PDFs and reading through all the PDFs that I've got from different locations. But then once I was able to identify the strategic documents, and in fact, the last document that helped me out answer was the one from WHO, which was WHO Regulatory Considerations for AI in Health. So just like having a big overview really helps us move forward. And it's happening right now. We're using it right now. Artificial intelligence is with us. It's even in a Google search. So I think there's no looking back. And now we have to move forward and ensure that we have really, really, really good data.
Thank you very much. And this also builds on the previous question about different ways to use AI for doctors. And this is a completely different example. Thank you very much for sharing this very personal example. I think this also is connected to the next question, because people want to know, in order to effectively apply AI in health innovation, what roles do you see for other stakeholders outside healthcare settings? So, for example, the government or the communities themselves. We were talking about vulnerable groups a minute ago. So what would you say that is their role for all these other stakeholders?
If I may continue building on top of this, Jaisamer, if I may, we really need to look at 5 main stakeholders here. We need to look at governments. First and foremost, governments have a big role to start determining policy. And I'm really looking forward that in 2024, it has already started, that governments take a stronger role, especially ministries for health, take a stronger role in determining AI in health policy. Why? Because they are the most experienced, they are the most connected, they speak frequently to so many different stakeholders, unions, patient community, so they have a big role there. And they also, in many different ways, they have the mandate to represent people. So that's very important, first and foremost. Secondly, communities and patient advocacy groups, such as EPHA, for example. And these different organizations need to come into the picture, because sometimes they fill up, not sometimes, many times they fill up the gaps that maybe the government might be missing or the private industry might be missing. Research institutions, we still have many questions to ask and that need to get answered. And research institutions really have a structured way to approach this. So definitely they need to come. And the last two are the private sector and tech developers and international bodies. So the private sector, they really need to ensure that whatever they develop does not perpetuate existing bias, but it actually, commit to ethical AI. We can't really have we can't have a repeat, for example, of a Cambridge Analytica kind of scandal in AI for healthcare. We can't afford that. So it needs to be, by default, a vision towards ethical AI. And we need to keep on repeating this multiple times, even if it can be annoying. But we need to, because we have to advocate for our patients. And last but not least, international bodies such as WHO, which have already started leading the way, and they need to continue leading the way, because they truly represent a large body, the biggest possible body of member states and countries. So they really have a big role here, and I really hope that they continue on the excellent work done so far.
Thank you very much. So we have the governments, the research institutions, civil society organizations, developers, and international bodies. So that's all the stakeholders that need to be active in the discussion to make sure that the regulations of the use of AI in healthcare are ethical. And maybe we can move on to the next question, unless someone wants to, add in something. But otherwise, I have a question that I think would particularly suit Jacob. This question is, are AI systems classified as medical devices? And also, given that AI companies are often commercial players, are doctors concerned about putting health data into the hands of these companies?
So I would divide this into two questions. So first one would be about the medical certification, I guess. And when it comes to the medical certification, we know that the situation is not perfect. I mean, there are more and more startups and companies which are classified, especially when it comes to the FDA, because in Europe, I guess it's a little bit harder, or those algorithms are not so easily certified themselves. Usually they are part of a component maybe. And FDA already has around 100 algorithms certified, and most of those algorithms are actually radiology or pathology, basically algorithms. So analysis of vision, basically of image, is something that so far is getting the most places and is implemented, I would say, in the widest form. So definitely Joanna and Belen here are in the right track with their tools and what they're using, and definitely that's a good one. And those are certified in most cases. In when it comes to the classification of those, usually in Europe they are classified as 2A. So they are supporting the doctor in either getting to the image which is dangerous to some extent or pathological in the first place, and stratifying those images, for example, in the line to get those most concerning in the first place. Because when the doctor goes for an 8-hour shift, 12-hour shift, or 24-hour shift, because that happens, usually their focus is getting lower and lower, due to the time they spend in work. So basically, those algorithms are doing the great job helping those doctors to really deal with the hardest cases in the first place, and then leaving, those easiest one when they are a little bit tired and they maybe have more, capacity for not a mistake, let's say, but not so much focus. So definitely those need a classification, and many of them are. Some of the algorithms are still classified under the MDD because you see how the change between the MDD and MDR regulation is taking place. It's prolonging as well. So I've seen many AI algorithms classified under class A under the MDD, which are making their classification academic tool or a research tool, let's say. But in real life, in some cases, they are used as a clinical decision support system. So definitely they will need to recertify under the MDR. But everybody is waiting for the AI Act to finally be implemented or for the final version, hoping that actually the AI Act may help them a little bit with the MDR regulations, which we know are strict. Europe is more strict than the FDA in some extent, to some extent in some cases, definitely more strict than some Asian certifications, etc. But we want to have this trustworthy AI in Europe, which will be the benchmark for all the other countries to the world when it comes to the safeness and explainability, etc., etc. So I would say when it comes to this classification, there is still many things that needs to be done, but we see the light in the tunnel with the AI Act, which actually to some extent is strict. But I see that it's opening up some possibilities for the algorithms, for the companies. For example, the retraining of the algorithms, which was really a tough topic for some companies so far. But when it comes to the data that you put into the tool itself and the trustworthiness of that, again, it depends, because if the algorithm is already implemented in the EHR system, so I think there is no concern to the doctor who is using this. You treat this as a ultrasound. You treat this as a computer tomography with additional value, with add-on, an AI add-on, and you basically don't think so much. Is it safe to put this information? I guess this is the cybersecurity guys in the hospital that should be concerned more about this. If there's not going to be leak, if it's safe, and so on. The doctors are then may focus on doing what they know how to do the best, so diagnosis and treatment in the end. But when you have some external tools, which sometimes happen, and you need to to take the data from the EHR system, so your hospital system, and to put this on some outside of the system and put this to some other device, tool, page, algorithm, then definitely it brings concerns, because you are taking this valuable data of patient and putting it to some another window to test it, to validate it, like with the ChatGPT. I guess you shouldn't for now take the intimate information of the patient to put this in the ChatGPT just to check some things. It's still not a medical device. It's not certified. Of course, we can use chat, and I use it every day for some different options or to check some things. But I would never, at least at that point, take information of the patient to put this into chat just to play with that or to see what the chat has to say around this. So definitely the certification and what we put in the data needs to go in hand. So if something is safe, it's implemented in the EHR, use it freely, and you don't even have to think so much about it. It's probably safe if it's in the EHR and if it's integrated with the EHR. But if it's a medical device or a tool that is outside and you're not sure if it's certified or not, I wouldn't play with that so much. I would reconsider and wait for the example for this device, for this tool to be certified and to be safe when it comes to GDPR compliance and all the regulations.
So if I get it right, what you're trying to say is that we need to advocate for good, well-rounded, well-thought regulations, so that doctors don't need to be concerned about this, because it will not be on their shoulders, because the systems that are put into the market are safe enough for them to use, right? I think Stefan wants to add something to the topic. Please go ahead.
Definitely. So thanks, Jakob, for that very interesting insight. One thing that I'm looking forward to is that the legal user experience of these documents are top notch. That means that even the document itself needs to be explained as well in a plain language. These are things that also, in fact, they're also part of health literacy, digital health literacy, and it needs to be presented in this way. Why? Because you want maximum adoption at the end of the day. So this is something I think it's something that we really need to advocate, that as much as possible, these legal documents and these acts are explained in a way that can be understood by the large majority, and the large majority of healthcare professionals, because we really need people on board to really kind of integrate the principles of these acts. So that's going to be, I think, really the next step. Like after all this discussion of all these different amendments and that the way it is communicated, it is communicated in a way that can be understood by everyone, not just the legal profession only. For example, it needs to be understood by the healthcare profession. It needs to be understood by the medical device company. It needs to be understood by as many people as possible.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And I think Johanna and Belen also want to share their thoughts with us.
Yes, just if I may add, only just to contribute with our input as pathologists and with the experience we've had in this implementation project we're having for digital and computational pathology. Commercial players in AI, I think they have the resources and the certifications to not only provide robust solutions, but they also have to ensure that the solutions are delivered, and also to take responsibility for the importance of these diagnostic health tools. And something we have make sure of with our procurements is that these companies have certifications like CE IVD, and they're absolutely needed. And the companies that we are actually expecting to work with, they're heavily scrutinized by health regulators for every step in patients' data handling. And just as a fact, in most cases, the AI companies for pathology diagnostics, they do not use patient data, only the images itself without the records of the patient. Just it's a side note.
Thank you very much, Johanna, for your thoughts on this. And now we're going to move into the last question. We've all been talking about the potential benefits of AI and the precautionary measures that we need to contemplate when we design and deploy these instruments to make sure that they don't raise further concerns. But overall, we see a very positive perspective from you. So the last question, maybe this one is for you, Jakub, is how can we get people who are still distrustful of AI-based tools to see its potential benefits?
So I guess this is also a little bit coming back to, how to make this adoption broader. And I think education is the key to that. Again, I think I've mentioned this, but the education when it comes to both the patients and the doctors as well. So me working right now in the medical healthcare chamber, we created something which is called Innovation Network. So we want to get involved as many doctors and the communities around the medical health professionals to be more aware of the innovation itself and to be more open for this innovation, because as you know, when it comes to the innovators, it's only 2.5% of the society are innovators when it comes to the GOS scale, and 30.5 are the early adopters, which makes us 15%. So if you look at the big scale, 15% is not much in theory, but then comes the early majority, and this is what we wanted to break. We want to make this chiasm work and to get to this chiasm as fast as possible, to teach the doctors and the young doctors, maybe not young, maybe a little bit older as well. Everybody, we are of course inclusive, how to use those tools and how to use it safely, and how to to be open for those innovation that comes, because we saw that, for example, in Germany, when it comes to DiGA, so digital therapeutics reimbursement, that it was implemented really good, let's say, in the country. They had the regulations, they had the reimbursement, they had everything, but it comes to adoption, it didn't really fly so well as they expected, or as everybody expected, because of some concerns, or because of some of this lack of education, which let's face it, it takes years to actually make it happen. So right now in healthcare chamber, we are educating those postgraduates, so the doctors who already are out there in the market and who are already treating and diagnosing. But this education needs to go even a step before. So it needs to get to the university, because, for example, as a doctors, we are not taught on the technical issues, the innovation itself, and the business a little bit. I would really love to be taught when I was at the university, medical university, those bases of how to actually do innovation, and how to have this entrepreneurial mindset, for example, that we see in some of the Western countries, but also in Israel. They have this entrepreneurial mindset straight from the beginning, from the high school, from the universities, etc. And when they finish up the universities, they are starting to think how to make their own business, how to make this innovation happen, how to implement this innovation in the market, etc., which definitely is making this adoption easier. But on the other hand, again, we need to go and face the patients. So they need to be, because even if we have the innovation, even if the doctors will be able to use it, but the patients, on the other hand, won't be open for this innovation, again, we will have a problem with that. So we need to educate patients on telemedicine, e-health, and the use of artificial intelligence, especially those one with the chronic conditions, etc., how to use it wisely and how they can improve their life, their quality of life.
Thank you very much, Jacob. So we have now covered all the questions that I had prepared for you today. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions and for sharing your insights and your experiences with us. In a minute, I will ask you to share with us one final, thought, key message, take-home message that you want our audience to remember after the webinar. But before I ask you to do so, since we have a couple minutes left, is there anything you want to share? I know you have all been trying to, shorten your answers, just, to keep the conversation going. But this is your last chance if there is something you really want us to, know, anything you want to share before we move on. I think Stefan has something to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the guy who always wants to speak up, but in general, I think what we really need to look into is that now is the time to sit down and do deep work on the topic. And by deep work, I mean setting up a strategy, setting up an action plan, thinking about how we can take this forward, starting to set things on a document and a vision and get things going and start writing those emails and start reaching out and talking to people. You will be impressed by how many people are willing to talk to you about specifically this topic, even just concerns like us. So what worries you? We really need to focus on communication, because if we don't focus on it and let it happen on us by the tech giants, for example, or by the technology companies, or by the health IT companies, or the medical device, if we just let it come from their side only, we're going to have a biased picture. So we really need to sit down, start doing our research, start thinking, and if need be, set block time every week to start seriously tackling this topic. And I really encourage all healthcare professionals here and all people who are working on health data to really dedicate a specific amount of time, even if it is just 1 hour every week, reading up on artificial intelligence. It will give you that extra edge on everyone else. So I think one thing we need to keep in mind, that it's true that before we said that AI won't replace healthcare professionals, but I have this very strong feeling that healthcare professionals who use AI eventually will replace the healthcare professionals who don't use it at all. Because at times we're talking about a topic where even no data right now, when there's no data on a patient, it's being deemed as unethical. Let's think about that a bit. If there is no data, that means that not even a note, or just like if there is no data about a patient encounter, especially clinical notes, it is unethical. Now that's something to think about, because even if you have the best AI in the world, if there is no data, which is high quality data, then we really can't implement high quality AI.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your last minute thoughts and shares on this topic. And now we're moving on to the last round of inputs from your side. I wanted to ask you one key message, one key idea that you want our audience to remember after the webinar. So maybe we can start with Johanna and Belen if you want. What's that one thing that you want people to remember?
Yeah, actually, I think just to summarize what we've talked today, AI is our ally and not our enemy. And it will enhance the efficacy and the efficiency of our diagnosis as pathologists. And this will give us and the patients more security and even get us closer to what we all like to call precision medicine. So that's it for us, I think.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Johanna and Belen. Jacob, do you want to share with us your take-home message?
Well, actually, the take-home message is also going in the same direction. So the AI needs to add something to our life. It needs to bring the value. Either it's a value when it comes to the time we spend on something, optimizing the time, optimizing the personalizing the medicine, or optimizing our decision, but it needs to have this value, which needs to be also proven. It goes a little bit maybe not to the doctors or to the patient itself, but maybe to the producers of AI and the when you come out with a new tool, kind of approve it that it needs and adds value for the doctors, for the patients, when it comes to, again, time, precision medicine, personalization, decision making. And if it does, I think it's going to be a lot easier to implement this, because if the doctors and the patients will see the value of that, I think it's going to be easier to implement, and it's going to be used widely.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we are moving to Stefan.
Oh wow! So I thought that I already left us quite a strong message, but I think if I had to reflect on all that has been said, we really need to focus on communication, because good communication and also brings about trust. And when you have trust, you have a better chance to reach out to all kinds of populations, because those populations, because they trust what you're doing, and they will reach out to you and say, listen, we have a problem here. Can you help us address it? And yes, because you have developed trust, and you can reach out to those populations and you can solve that problem, because you will actually know that there is a problem. So sometimes, even though AI could be some of the best quality AI, there are still things that need to be addressed by the different people on the ground. That means that's why you have to talk, you have to communicate. I think if I don't want you to forget anything, is how important it is that we really communicate the value of AI, especially principled AI, because that will help us move forward, and it will help us not move forward like slowly, but accelerate towards the present and future.
Thank you very much. So some of the messages that will sit around after this webinar are that AI is a support tool for doctors, and it's not here to replace them. It's your ally, as Johanna just said, and we need to make sure that now that is the time to regulate its use, we devote our time and our efforts to understand what the challenges are and what the potential solutions could be. So Stefan is advocating here for better communication, to improve communication across all channels with the regulators, but also with anybody who might have concerns and is actually willing to share them with us. And that way we could maybe foster engagement and adoption of these tools to improve your medical practice. Thank you very much. That's all we had planned here today. Thank you very much for everyone who joined online, also especially to all of those who contributed questions to the survey. Thank you for all who will be watching this later on, who will be watching the recording that will be uploaded in the website after the event. And especially thank you to all the speakers who were here willing to share their thoughts and their experience and their knowledge on such a controversial but actually quite needed topic. today, the idea that we need to take into consideration the barriers that different communities might be facing when it comes to the digital inclusion of all citizens was a topic that came up a few times today. And I just wanted to let you know that that's a topic that we will be covering in the next webinar that we are organizing for January. We'll be having different people coming from different communities who can talk about how these underrepresented groups might be facing specific barriers when it comes to the digital transformation of health system, but also what are the strengths that these communities have that we could use to build upon to ensure their digital inclusion. So keep an eye on that. We'll share the date very soon. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone, and see you next time.